Good morning from Luxembourg. Today you are joining me for my first ever drive in the new Ferrari 12 Cilindri, the 12-cylinder, a future Shmeemobile. We will touch today on some specification ideas. Mine is actually not going to be all that far away, but today we're out here. We're actually later on going to be heading to Circuit Goodyear. Ferrari and Goodyear partnering back up to drive this thing at their proving grounds. Before that, however, I want to show you around the car. This is Giallo Monte Carlo, the colour that we actually saw on the SF90 Spider. This is, however, what you think of when you think of Ferrari. A V12 powered Super GT, 6.5 litres of NA 12-cylinder power plant glory, revving to 9,500 RPM. And today, you're coming with me to go and experience it. So let's have a quick intro to the car. Then, before the rainstorms are incoming, let's go get out onto the road, drive this and see what it's like. Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel. Let's do it. The new Ferrari 12 Cilindri. If you've followed the channel for a while, you'll know how much of a fan I've always been of this car's predecessor, the 812 Superfast and the 812 GTS. Ferrari have launched simultaneously the 12 Cilindri, and I'm going to talk about that for a moment because they did kind of drill it into us. It's not called the 12 Cilindri, whatever you do. It's either the 12-cylinder, if you translate it to English, or 12 Cilindri in Italian, literally 12-cylinder, a celebration of Ferrari's V12s. Not necessarily the last. For many years there have been rumours of the last of this kind of car from Ferrari. It remains to be seen. Some interesting answers to some of the questions we had at the briefing. But the 812 has always been mega. This follows the same formula. We've got a V12 up front, it's rear driven, we've got the new 8-speed dual clutch gearbox, but I particularly like, as I have ordered, the coupe. The design of this, the delta wing that stretches over the back, lots of luggage space as well back here, and it's a car that fits this Super GT brief, right? We've recently seen the new Aston Martin Vanquish launch, which is an interesting competitor to it, but inside here, a mixture of comfort and sportiness, a very unusual colour scheme on this particular car, it has to be stated, but all of the latest infotainment technology and screens, and we'll have a play through all of that a little bit later on to understand more about it. We've got the optional glass roof as a carbon fibre roof by default, but I quite like having that, and the design of it is all inspired by the old 365 GTB4. It's about the Ferraris of old. It's a new design language for the company, which I think prompts what we're going to be seeing more of with the upcoming supercar and everything going forwards from there. So this band around the front, where interestingly the headlights mix in to the design. You could only have this front panel in gloss black, but almost taking away that prominent feature at the front of a car, giving it a more subtle appearance, and the idea, I guess, being more about the future-proofing. But what you notice from the design is that you've got this band, these blades that follow all the way around past this side strake, the line that continues to the back and then cuts in through the tail lights that wrap around at the rear. Back here, these are active aero flaps. I'm going to tell you more about how they work later on as well, but this side panel comes up by 10 degrees between various speeds. So there's a lot to it to find out about, but I think with bad weather coming, I want to get on the road. Today we're going to go through it in detail, have a full tour of the interior later on, drive it in proper anger, but let's go get started. I am itching to take this on the road. The new 12 Cilindri, let's go. Familiar door handles from the other recent models. Inside though, I can't wait to press the magic button and fire this up. We've got that curved digital display, but press and hold here, take a listen. V12 in all its glory. Now the Manettino currently set for wet. We will play through the different settings, but this is it. This is the car. The roads beckon, let's go. 12 Cilindri. Into gear. We are in wet mode for the moment. We will turn that up very shortly, but let's get started in a car that initially feels very familiar. Having driven many miles in the 812 and its different derivatives, including Competizione, this is an evolution of that car in many ways. It's actually slightly shorter, 20 millimeters shorter, 2 centimeters, less than an inch, so almost negligible difference, but obviously has the latest round of all of the technology. ABS Evo that was introduced with the 296, we're talking slip slide control, everything that you can think of, along with the 8-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, cruising at 45 kilometers an hour, we're already in 6th gear. Obviously, the way these things work, it's very calm, it's very quiet, it's very smooth, it's very gentle, but I know that this is about to become a bit of an animal. I have very, very high expectations for what this car is going to be like. And I have to say, like the Purosangue, it's very approachable. You don't feel in any way intimidated stepping in it, even though there is an enormous bonnet, a hood, out in front of you that just seems to stretch off somewhere into the oblivion, into the abyss out there, miles and miles away. Of course, we've got things like that noise you might just have heard, the vibration as I crossed over the line to pass the tractor just there. But initial driving, like I say, very familiar, and that's what I was hoping from it. The fact that in the modern day downsizing is happening, cars are having to get quieter, all of that kind of stuff. If Ferrari can keep this 12-cylinder going, I am all for it. Now, if we turn this up into sport, the very familiar H-pad here with manual, we're in 7th gear, so we've got a lot of downshifting to go. Starting to hear it, 2nd gear, build those revs. What a sound! There's all sorts of magic going on to pipe some of that sound back into the cabin. Not using the speakers for that, but actually bringing it back through the hot tube system that they've shown on previous cars. And obviously as we go through the different Manettino settings, it's only going to get even more lively. The fantastic news is that up to this point, the weather has held back. And just as I say that, the rain seems to be starting. But before it gets too wet, let's go into race, because this is where everything sharpens up. The gearbox downshifts are to die for. The noise is even better. These little pops you get on the upshifts are phenomenal. This is where this car cannot be matched. Listen to that, 2nd gear, midway through the rev range. Those shift noises are just unreal. It sounds unbelievable. Now, we could turn it back the other way. I actually need to turn on the wipers as well. We'll pop those onto automatic. We've got the settings for them here. A lot of people often talk about the steering wheel and how much is going on. There are a lot of different controls. I'm in the very spoiled position to have done many miles in my Purosangue Roma Spider, the 296 and the SF90, which share this type of system and setup. So safe to say I'm fairly familiar with how it all operates. But I tell you what, these roads where we are right now in Luxembourg are just unbelievable for driving a car like this. Let's go back to race. Let's go back to manual. Let's start dropping it down again. The gearbox has 5% shorter ratios as a result of the extra speed. So the 8th is actually longer, even more efficient and friendly, obviously, for cruising. And it means that you get even faster up through the rev range. And the snaps and sounds. It's just insane that this combination still exists, that you can still have an engine that does this and this. As you go, it's very hard actually to get it to 9.5 because it's quite quick, let's just say. But when you get there, this is a masterpiece. The sorcery behind this fun is what lies up front, the engine, and we should take a look at it. In a Ferrari, the catch is under the steering column in the very centre, which releases this enormous front clamshell, the bonnet. It stretches out over the wings. By reducing the number of panels, obviously you have a cleaner look without all of the panel gaps, and like the Purosangue, quite the sense of occasion because it pivots from the front. You would just constantly want to open this up to show what's behind it. Now, when Ferrari were founded back in 1947, the first engine was a V12. There have been some iconic and famous Colombo V12s and other engines over the years, but this has gone from a 1.5 litre back then to the 6.5 litre now. It looks magnificent with the bright red, with all of the carbon fibre, and as you can see, it's mounted all the way behind the front axle. You have the perfect 48-52 weight distribution as a result, and in many ways it's borrowed from the engine that was found in the 812 Competizione. So we're talking 830 CV metric horsepower, 678 newton meters of torque, and actually you get 80% of that torque all the way from 2,500 RPM. They've done some very clever stuff with the software as well to give you the feel of acceleration and to change the torque delivery to make sure you always have that maximum effect. Not only that, it also has new titanium conrods, which are 40% lighter. They've used a new alloy for the pistons. The crankshaft has been lightened as well by 3%. A whole host of upgrades along with the different software things that are happening as well. And let's be real, it just looks superb. Now, I do think this weather is definitely looking pretty grim, so we should get back on the road, close this back down. Oh, that's just cool. Get this started. Let's get back in, keep driving. Think of this like an orchestra. I'm the conductor. I have various different things that are creating the most amazing symphony. Number one, the shift sound. We've got the carbon fibre shift paddles here mounted to the steering column. Of course, there's often discussions whether you prefer them on the steering wheel or on the column, but in a Ferrari, it's the same across every model. They're always easy to find. And then the second thing is that throttle pedal. A small pedal press, and you have this most amazing sound that just unleashes. And what perhaps stands out to me the most is the shift noise. It's quite unique. I cannot get enough of that. Of course, there is a ton of torque, so along a road like this, just keep it in third, don't worry about it too much. But then you have this constant urge to want to shift between the gears, to just enjoy even more of it, to have fun with that sound, to drop it down knowing that you are driving something that really, in the modern era, is quickly becoming rarer and rarer. I love that chirp. It's so much more exotic in terms of the sound when you're in race than when you're in sport. And it's this cliched phrase of having different characters. And of course, I'm being ginger with it here because it's wet and greasy. This isn't my car. And I don't want to be the guy that stuffs a Ferrari today. So we'll take it a little bit carefully. But still, just between every one of these corners, it just unleashes with the most glorious soundtrack. It is like being at literally a musical concert. I can't think of a better way to describe this. Let's get to 9.5. That is just amazing. After a quick checkpoint, where, believe it or not, you probably wouldn't necessarily have guessed this, we've actually swapped cars. They're all spec'd exactly the same, but I want to show you a little bit more to do with the flaps and the active aero back here. So in the design, you have all of these gloss back elements, right? The band at the front, the roof area, and then this section at the back, which houses the rear window. You've got a surprisingly good amount of visibility backwards, but in the original photos, this was very heavily tinted to keep that black theme, where at the sides, you then have these active aero flaps. These can raise up to 10 degrees. Like other Ferrari models, the Roma, even the LaFerrari, you name it, there's no button to press to put it in some kind of poser mode. They stay down flush with the bodywork. Now, below 60 kilometers an hour, so just shy of 40 miles an hour, they will always be down. Above 300 kilometers an hour, 186 miles an hour, they will also always be down. There are two positions, the low downforce position as you see here, high downforce when they're up. But effectively, if you're going that fast, you're probably not turning, and there's enough downforce with the aerodynamic profile of the car itself, if you come in closely to see the diffuser, because you can actually see straight through these, that it doesn't need to use the flaps. Between 60 and 300, that's where the car is using all of its computers and sensors. Depending on your Manettino setting, your driving inputs, it will choose whether it needs to use them. So braking heavily for a corner, for example, it will pop them up, which gives you 50 kilos of additional downforce at 250 kilometers an hour, 155 miles an hour. So just enough to keep that rear, that tail of the car, a touch more planted down towards the ground, and you see them just a little bit popping up in the mirrors when you're looking backwards when you're driving, which is kind of fun to know that they're there. Then behind those sections, you have this little gurney flap that sits here at the back as well, just to help keep that tail planted to the ground in this, I'm going to say, quite unusual shape, the way it's very much this swooping wedge towards the back, more traditionally associated with rear or mid-engined cars, as opposed to those with the engine up front. But I think it's a very clean design that links back to the era of the 60s and 70s and some of those older Ferrari models. It's getting a little bit dirtier though, unsurprisingly, considering what we're driving in today, but hey, any opportunity to put the foot down in here is a good one. I am spoiled today. The roads that we are driving on are utterly fabulous, and this is before we even get to the track later on. But I tell you what, this experience is posing one question for me that I hadn't expected today, which is that there is actually a disturbing amount of crossover between the Purosangue and 12 Cilindri. Now, I use my Purosangue mostly when we're going to be taking more than two people in a car, and of course that is one pretty significant factor that differentiates the two cars. But I tell you what, in most environments, V12 dual clutch Grand Tourer Ferrari, these two cars have a lot more in common than perhaps I might have expected. In terms of dynamics, while obviously this is going to be more extreme in terms of outright performance, it's got an extra 105 horsepower, plus it weighs significantly less, and obviously more capable in terms of how it's set up dynamically. The Purosangue is not half bad, you know, and for normal road driving, plenty fast as well. It'd be really interesting to get, this is pretty slippy out here, it'd be really interesting though, to get the two together. And it's making me wonder if with this coming, is the Puro a little bit redundant in my own collection? Which isn't something that prior to today, I had necessarily even contemplated. So that's something I'll need to consider a little bit more later on. I tell you what though, considering the conditions, and we're on the PS4S from Michelin for the road drive. It's going pretty well. While I'm sitting inside here, let me show you a little bit more around the interior of this car. You've got some decent space behind actually, that parcel shelf back there, and obviously a big trunk boot space behind it. This particular car has this very unusual specification with the green seat and the yellow stitching. But look around and you can see these distinct different zones. You've now got the 15.6-inch curved display sitting central screen for the driver. You've then got the 10.25-inch display here, which is an addition over the Purosangue, which didn't have one of those, and the 8.6-inch passenger display. So on this screen, the passenger can see your live gear and what you're doing in terms of the drive, or choose the music or a few settings, and control their seat from here as well in terms of the massaging, the lumbar support, thermal comfort, so your heating and cooling, etc. Beneath the central screen, where obviously you have the full control panel suite, everything that you can imagine wanting to be able to control inside this, climate, seat as well for the driver. You obviously also have your music, media and infotainment. Beneath you have a wireless charging pad, cup holder, all the optional carbon fibre on this car. The H-pad, which has been a prominent feature of most of the recent Ferrari models. I'm a big fan of this. Nice link back to the old classic gated manual. Obviously nothing in the current Ferrari lineup featuring a manual gearbox. Bit of storage here in the armrest, a couple of USB-C ports and the comfort features you'd want. One thing to touch on is the glass roof. Perfect for hanging a camera from, but probably a hard stretch considering the price point. Obviously you add some weight up top, but your driver's eye line, you don't see it. You're looking under it wherever you look around. And similarly almost to the Purosangue, I slightly feel that it's a little bit reluctant, or redundant I should say, sorry. Looking at the driver zone, carbon fibre LED steering wheel, big fan of these, love the shift lights up top, and obviously the carbon paddles as I mentioned earlier, all of your different controls on here. One thing I'm going to point out is that once you've woken the steering wheel up, you have this hotkey right here, which is for your ADAS presets, where you can turn off, for example, every time you step in, the annoying beeps that happen at the speed limit, as every modern car, certainly in Europe, legally requires you to do. On this screen, unlike before, where if you change the modes, it would effectively replace the rev counter with your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, those now go down here, leaving this just for the rev counter. Again, big step up, but you've got this dual zone design, right? Driver inside their cockpit, passenger inside their cockpit over to the other side. There are some fun materials that are used for the grab handles here. Lots of optional carbon fibre for the door card inserts and things on this particular car. We've also got the mirror controls tucked in just down there as well. And the big thing with this, right, is the soundtrack. If I just give it a quick blip. That revs so quickly and sounds so amazing. Whoa, the snap. Epic, absolutely epic for a car in this day and age. Memory seats, button to open up the boot, a little bit of storage here as well. Lots and lots of speaker grills for the performance audio system that you have around. In fact, up top on the roof as well. And just a very, very nice place to be. You can spec a lot of different configurations. You can have the bucket seats, as we're going to see, or have seen also. And yes, really, all round, a brilliant cabin. I guess we've kind of established on a road like this is a car that can be vicious, mean, and very excitable. You can, of course, press bumpy road mode and soften the suspension, be a little bit more chilled, or you can go the other way, pop it back into automatic, turn the Manatino for a day like today into wet, and just cruise along. It's docile, gentle, easy. And I think that's what we're going to do now as we head from here over to Circuit Goodyear to go and drive it in some real anger and find out a little bit more. Welcome to Circuit Goodyear. So I'm about to go out for a couple of laps driving one of the red cars, chasing the yellow car up in front. But this is where the adrenaline starts to pump, because later on we're also going to have a simulator session as well. First up though, given it's inevitable that my future Dodici Cilindri will be driven at the Nürburgring Nordschleife and maybe another track or two, let me go show you some of the differences, and then let's get ready to go straight out. You'll notice this car in particular is wearing not only the other wheel design, which I actually prefer, but also the Goodyear Eagle F1 Supersport tyres, which you can also have with the run-on-flat technology. So these have been developed in partnership with Ferrari. I will be chasing that car in a second, but a few other differences with this specific model. We have the piano black tinted rear deck, as I was talking about earlier. We also have the fixed roof, the default option as opposed to having the panoramic glass up top, and we have the carbon fibre bucket seats, the same seat that we've seen in previous Ferrari models, but finished here with the navy blue leather and some of the red inserts and details. But that's my seat for right now, so let's hop in. This is a first for me then, driving here. We're in manual gears, first lap, lead follow to learn the layout. It feels lively. Rain clouds coming. Gotta say, 275 kilometers an hour as the heavens have opened. That's not ideal. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, my bad luck of timing. It was beautiful. Now it is not. Wipers on. Unfortunately, the weather gods are not really in our favour today. But nonetheless, listen to this. The sound, the feeling, the scream. That kick. Significantly faster than the Purosangue, I can tell you that. What a sound, what a feeling. Unreal. Wow. Conditions not ideal for a track session, but 12 cylinders firing as Ferrari know how. All right, we're back at base. What a drive. We've made it. Cool. Time to hop out in the rain. Well, that all happened incredibly quickly. My time out on track, I was hoping for some dry and a little bit more of an experience, but it just whets the appetite for what's coming in future. No pun intended, looking at this very miserable weather we have now, though I tell you what, these cars look really quite nice, even with the raindrops all over them. And the more you spend time around them in person and understand the design, it becomes a lot more organic and natural than the, I'm going to say, fussy looks that it feels when you just see the Dodici Cilindri in pictures for the first time. Just one that you need to see in person. Would you believe this? Another 10 or 15 minutes has gone by, and soon I'm going to need to get some sunglasses out. It's just my luck, although saying that, the track at this moment in time is probably still quite wet with standing water, so it wouldn't be all that much better. One thing I need to correct on is that the cars we've been driving on the roads today, and this is actually a third one filming with right now, are fitted with the Pilot Sport S5 tyres, not the predecessor, which was the 4S. So a new compound that was also made for this. It's very confusing with those names. And of course, there will be a mixture of these on different tyres, depending on different regions and what customers choose as well. Now, when it comes to this car, I cannot wait. I am excited. And one thing that I've learned today, looking at them so much, is that you need to embrace the design and the styling. The gloss black panel at the front, the roof, and the delta wing at the back of the car. Just embrace it. Take it on. It suits very well with a lighter body colour, especially on the coupe as we have here. It's like this mix of traditional Ferrari with the links back to the late 60s of the 365 GTB4, but with the modern car underneath, right? The update to the 812 Superfast. And I teased myself even more than I teased you guys about one day buying an 812. And this is everything from that car, but stepped on. And where most manufacturers have had to downsize from 12 cylinders to 8-cylinder engines, add twin turbos, somehow Ferrari have continued to do this with an engine that screams. And when I heard the flyby clips that you guys have heard as well, I couldn't believe how good this thing sounds. I almost thought maybe I'm being fooled by it within the cabin. Thankfully, that is not the case. It is genuinely amazing. And I love the styling in person. I think it's such a cool looking thing with those retro style design features, but still very, very modern in every way. And that's what Ferrari are about. Timeless design, something that they evolve very frequently with their design language, and expect to see this style on the upcoming models. This is something they're going to recreate, I'm sure, in the next couple of cars to be released, before again it will be refreshed at some point a little bit further down the line. In terms of the drive, the ride is soft. It's a GT. You know, Ferrari have a portfolio that's filled with challenge cars, GT3 cars, GTE cars, the supercars, XX cars, F1 cars if you want to. So the road cars are built as road cars. It's not overly stiff, it's not uncomfortable. It's a car with a ton of luggage space, a lot of practicality, and very suited to the kind of purposes and things that I'm going to do with it. So I look forward to sharing a lot more of that with you as we fast forward onwards from here and do a ton more with the new Ferrari 12 Cilindri. This has been epic, a first drive. I hope you've enjoyed coming along for the ride and learning a little bit more about this car and everything that it entails. For me, driving it on both the road and also out on the racetrack, even if conditions weren't necessarily perfect, still been a ton of fun. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!